to be a singer in the Westminster Choir under Dr. Joe Miller, who was actually just accepted a position as director of choral activities at Cincinnati Conservatory. But while we were both there, he commissioned me to arrange a spiritual for Westminster Choir as we were preparing for National ACDA, which was in Dallas. Wow, that seems so long ago, and we're now kind of getting ready to go back there. But this was for Dallas, and so I chose this traditional spiritual ride in the Chariot. It had been one of my favorites for a while, and was just looking for new ways to kind of interpret. For me, as I kind of go through the piece with you all and give you some tips as to what I was thinking about and things that you all might want to think about as you prepare. I have been subject to so many different musical experiences, from growing up in church, to running around with my father, who is a musician, and being having experience of musical theater. Of course, a lot of jazz influence, some classical influence as well, some Western European classical interpretation. So all of that is very present and inherent in everything that I write. I write with every piece of experience that I have. And so I'm excited to share that with you all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen, and we're going to go through the score a little bit. And I'm going to just show you some of my thoughts as I was going through this. The most important thing that I think is apparent in that should be apparent in everything that you perform is this idea of a scene and storyline. I think that performers in a wide array of genres, whatever you're performing, whether it be the spiritual, whether it be Bach or Brahms, whether it be heavy metal, whether it be jazz, there is a story that comes before the music starts. There's a story that that has process throughout the song, and there's a story that continues on afterwards. And so what I'll do is kind of take you all through my story and what kind of scene that I see. So I'll share this screen with you all right now and take you all to the score. We're always thankful for GIA, who sent the score to me, but through PDF just today. I'm grateful. So I'll start you all through the top. So in the beginning, we start with it can be a soloist, it can be 2 to 3 tenors. I've seen in some cases that it's a second tenor section or a subset of that section. But anywho, we start with the soloist. And generally for me, as I grew up in church, you might generally have, especially in the Baptist church, we start out with what's called like a devotional. And what will happen is the deacon will come out, and he or she will sing and start with this melody, and they would intone this melody, and the audience or the congregation is kind of waiting in response to that. So that's why I called for that first verse, which you'll see at measure 4, right up in the Chariot soon in the morning, to be sung without choral accompaniment. We start with the second verse, and therein is this time for the choir to kind of act as this kind of Shakespearean chorus in response. And so you kind of get oohs and ahs, and it's got a little bit of that classical Shakespearean atmosphere to it, but it also just kind of has a bit of music theater prowess to it. So of course it just remains in the background, but it always kind of grows from an ooh to an ah, just kind of a communal celebration. And generally with the spiritual, there's always sort of this ending confirming, and it's all together, it's communal. It says, "I hope I'll join the band." And the band should be a bit shorter in context. Hope I'll join the band. When we get to this chorus section at page 5, every time, and you'll see that tenuto mark on Lord. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. And I like to think of the phrase as storyline within itself. So the O is short, the Lord is stretched, but where you're heading to is mercy. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. And so it just continues in that way. So you have these three short phrases: "Oh Lord, have mercy on me." The second one is a bit larger, of course, and then finally we have "Oh Lord," and those really, both of those really stretch out. Um, I generally think of the ends of phrases as sort of relaxing back into the fabric from which you started. So it's kind of like "mercy on me," and "I hope I'll join," and the band is kind of like getting quiet again. So every chorus that you think that you have is kind of starting from a place, you peak, and then you phrase back down. Okay, so that's the beginning. That's the first scene that we have. When we get to measure 21, chatter, 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 Lord. Dr. Andre Thomas, who just finished up as director of choral activities at Florida State, and he was my major professor and still remains as my mentor. He refers to this section, and please forgive me if I'm dating myself, as like the Andrew sisters. So if you're not familiar with who the Andrew sisters are, please go look them up. Everything that's happening in the soprano and alto section is very much like how the Andrew sisters might sing it. So it's very chatter, 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 Lord. So don't think about chatter, chatter. It's chatter, 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 Lord. Okay. And of course, you already have the dynamic here, which is piano, but the melody line is happening in the tenors and basses. So make sure you keep that full. But for my sopranos and altos, that's definitely a bit of a lighter, lifted section. Um, and so we once again get back into that. I'm going to move on now, and that's just another section within itself. And you can imagine that still got a lot of musical theater, a lot of early 20s, 30s type of ensemble, small quartet type harmony to it, especially in the soprano alto section. Here we have at measure 27, 28, 29, we finally have the choir who is able to just really sing their message for themselves. And so you can take this at a whoever, I'm sure Dr. Amanda Quist will take it at what tempo she prefers. She's done this plenty of times. But this is like full bravado, full bravado. I think of another great choral ensemble that actually used to perform a lot in musical theater back in the day, and that was the Hall Johnson Chorale. And that is a group back from the 30s and 40s, and I would strongly encourage you to go look them up on YouTube. There are plenty of performances. You can actually find them in things like Stormy Weather and I think Green Acres, some of those older black and white films. But once again, this is just really a full time for the choir to sing out with the fullness of the instrument there. And then, of course, we finally get to 33. Oh, oh, Lord, have mercy on me. Hit that and come back. And the sopranos come back with that wonderful kind of end of refrain. And joy. Yeah, so it's got a little bit of music theater show quality to it, but there's still scene and integrity to it. We come back to the chorus. The choir comes back. The soloist returns at 37. So it really continues the same way with that same scene of a line there. When we get to 45, this is so representative of everything that I grew up um, in church, growing up in Black church, where we might typically call it like a gospel vamp. We would refer to it as the vamp, that last kind of repetitive section. In more, I guess, Western classical terms, you would refer to it as an ostinato, this returning, repeating form. You start out with the basis, so every time, and I typically think of it as the singers really start to imitate instruments. And so I have this bass line here, but it's really like a string bass. Boom, 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 boom. That's a bass line. Your tenors might have a bit more of a brassy feel, maybe like trumpets. Bum, ya, dum, dum. Because when you have that "oh Lord" and you have that crunch on "Lord," I really want you all to stretch that out, and I want it to feel like kind of a muted trumpet. But I imagine always, and there is a performance of this arrangement by Dr. Jason Max Ferdinand and the Aeolians. It's on YouTube. I can send that link to Dr. Zabriskie so that you all can see it. But in a way, and they use choreography, and the basses start to walk out into the congregation, and it becomes this entire communal church experience. And that's exactly as I would have seen it. everybody, and it's not just relegated to the choir. It's not limited to the choir. It's the entire congregation having a section therein, and they are just displaying their current message. So you have the "Oh Lord," then the tenor section. "Oh Lord, have mercy. Oh Lord, have mercy." All of this is very heavily gospel and blues oriented here. This is just as a gospel vamp might be introduced. The sopranos come in, of course, with this long legato seated line. And then you might have, two sisters that might come out on in measure 63 at the soprano descant. Now, when we did this with Westminster Choir, Lord of Mercy, 7 years ago, there were two tenors, and they actually had their own improvised singing at the end. And so they're adding their own personal message to this around 63. And it's just kind of a mushroom. It's got that mushroom effect. Everything kind of builds up. As you all may know, generally the practice is the one section will present their line. They'll present it in whatever dynamic, but as soon as the next section comes in, everything kind of balances back down until everybody's together and it mushrooms out at the top. And so we finally get to 72, and we've got all this back and forth, this call and response. You have "Hope I'll join, ba da da, hope I'll join, ba da, hope I'll join, ba da da da." And so it's still got a very heavy sense of Broadway in it. So you've got this yadam ba da 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 ba da. Thought we're finished, and ba da da, hope I'll join the band. So that's the idea there, and the main point of me talking about all of this is to make sure that everybody has an idea of the storyline that comes with it, and it has to be image minded. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to have the same image. That's boring. Everybody needs to have their own image of what is going on, and it's very apparent to your auditioners. It's very important to the listeners. It's very important to the audience. It becomes very apparent to them the difference between somebody who's just singing notes and somebody who has an idea of their mind about what they wish to present to the audience. Um, in terms of tone, it's a bright song. That's a happy song. It's something we might refer to in terms of spirituals as a jubilee. It's got a spiritual text that refers to the prophet Elijah, heading up in a cloud. It's almost, but it's also got this idea of the ascension in Acts, of this fiery chariot heading up to heaven. But the larger message is what happened historically for slaves, and this whole idea that there was a better beyond the current situation. So however that you decide to relate to that is on you. But the storyline has to be apparent in your vocalism, in the way that you emote, all of that. The tone should be warm, but still have a very kind of bright affectation to it. Bright affectation to it. And for me, it becomes more, the tone is always very heavily inspired by the way that you present it, the way that you sing it. So yeah, so that is my spiel on it. And yeah, if there are any questions, free to take them. Yeah.
Awesome. First, let's give some snaps or claps to Dr. Waddles. That's perfect. I appreciate you very much being with us, Dr. Waddles, and sharing your experience with us. Dr. Waddles and I share the same mentor, Dr. Thomas, and some good memories back then with the Seminoles. While we're waiting so just put your questions in the private chat if you have any questions specifically about your part or about the composition itself, or just really anything, and then I'll field those and ask them while we're doing that. Perhaps I missed it, Dr. Waddles, but if I've got in my notes on page 10, starting at measure 45 during the gospel vamp section that you talked about, with the basses being like a string bass and then the tenors being like a muted trumpets. Did you talk about what instrument you had envisioned for the altos and the sopranos?
You know what, the altos, I was thinking something a bit more woodwindish, but it should still be a little bit warmer. oh Lord have mercy, and they'll stretch to the end of that. Um, my soprano is Lord have mercy. So the sopranos are just instruments within themselves. They're just gonna come out and sing.
Yeah.
Oh, have mercy. Yeah, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Good.
But yeah, that's great. Thank you for
Awesome.
asking that.
Yeah, thank you. And then the other pronunciation question I had, um,
Right.
the way you were speaking the text at measure 21, it sounded like you
hmm
were eliminating the R in chatter. Is that correct?
Oh, yep. Take those R's out at every instance that you can. Chatter, chatter. It's like CHADDA. Chatter, 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 Lord.
So same with
DAH
Lord and
maybe.
same with
Yep.
mercy. I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah. A little bit, use a little Lorry salt in it. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me.
yeah,
hmm
I've never heard that Laurie salt. I like that. That's some of my
Oh,
favorite
yeah, that's
stuff.
my one. We love that. We love that.
Awesome.
It needs to taste good when you sing it. So yeah.
Yeah, good. And then a question coming in while we're there is, so the
Right.
chatter should be with a D instead of a T, the
Yep.
double T.
Yeah.
Good. All right, so we have some questions. One person wonders how long it took you to compose the piece or arrange it.
Wow. You know what? This was asked of me. Dr. Miller asked it of me a few months before. A few months before we actually started our winter tour. This was quick, and generally, when something comes to mind, I immediately sit down on the piano and just go for it. I would say that this took less than a week, about 3 days. Now, what did happen was Dr. Andre Thomas. This was my first time meeting him. Came to Westminster for about a week. He was the guest artist in residence, and he saw the original format of the piece. So this is not what you see now is not what it was originally envisioned. That entire ostinato section at the end was not there. And he went through it with the choir and with me. And then he took me up to Dr. Miller's office and he said, this and this and this and that. And this is what
Yeah.
you need. And this is what the people want to hear. And immediately after I left him, because he was leaving the next day, um, I went right into a class and I finished it. And I brought it back to him and he said, this is the one.
Yeah.
And he said, it's going to make you a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Awesome.
Dr. Tommy, he did. He said exactly that.
Yep.
And that's how it happened. Some stuff takes a little longer. This one, yeah.
Yep. Good. Well, I've never known Dr. Thomas not to say what was on his mind. So
all about it still to this day,
That's awesome.
even especially in retirement.
Yep. Yeah. Excellent. Somebody wonders why you chose this particular African American spiritual to set
You know
for
what?
that performance or the first one.
It's very interesting because I am generally very cautious about arranging spirituals that have been arranged a lot already. I mean, we've got plenty. I try to steer clear of everything, almost any and everything that Moses Hogan arranged, because for the most part, he just set the standard. And there's so many others that I'd like to get to, but this one for me, I think that Dr. Miller was very clear about wanting something that was definitely very upbeat. He wanted a concert ender, and so this for me was just kind of in my ear and on my heart. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's been like 8 years ago. So it's a.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly how it came to mind, but definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, we wanted something that would really really bite, and this one has a lot of bite to it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Someone asks what the chariot represents. And I've read that question a couple times now. Is it? I think some people are asking what it represents specifically in the piece or in the spiritual
hmm
itself, and somebody is more asking more personally to you what the chariot means for you.
Wow, you all have really great questions, and it's interesting because a lot of times we as composers, arrangers will be asked questions that we were not thinking about when we wrote them. So I'll try to come. The first one I can definitely answer for you. The Chariot, in terms of its coded message, is one. It's a vehicle of freedom. It is a vehicle of freedom. So that Chariot could very well be the Underground Railroad. For those who are not aware, and to remind those that are aware, the Underground Railroad was a series of mediums, traveling mediums through which the slave accessed freedom. So heading from the South to the coveted North, and even all the way to Canada, but usually Ohio. Generally Ohio, sometimes on Eastern Coast. For me, wow. I think it's important to state at this time, and it's exactly what we're going through as a whole in this nation, that and I'm so grateful for it now that I have so many allies who are not of color, who are reaching out to make sure that the work of African Americans in music is being fully represented everywhere. That was not always the case, and we're still going to be working towards that. When I got to Westminster, and this is not to cause any aspersion against them, it just was not as present. And I'm the one, and I came and made a fuss about it. And I'm glad that I did. And I'm so grateful for people like Dr. Miller and Dr. Jordan and Dr. Amanda Quist, who will serve as your conductor. So somebody asked me that question privately. I will say that I'm going to get to all of these questions. Whoever's sending me questions privately, I'm going to answer them. So keep sending them. So I'm grateful to them for allowing me that opportunity, because Westminster was the first place that I was able to really start arranging in terms of Black sacred music, and really studying and researching. And that's so interesting because I mean, I had come from Morehouse. I'd come from a historically Black college in Atlanta, Georgia. But it was at a PWI, which for those of you all don't know, is regularly referred to as a predominantly white institution, where I was able to make that change. And so the Chariot for me is my vehicle for expression, and that's freedom within itself.
Yeah, and I think cool to be able to seek out and or have those kinds of mentors, because if I understand your career path correctly, this has become African American spiritual and transcriptions, and some of that has been your research and what you have made your life's work, and because of great mentors is how it got started.
Absolutely, and those mentors come from all sides of the color field. I'll tell you that they have come from all sides, and that's imperative. And I want to make sure that I emphasize that to all of you here. That is imperative. Yeah.
We have one student who wants to say something specifically to you. His name's Jason O. So Jason O, you have permission to unmute your mic and say your thing.
All right. So I was in the 2020 All-State tenor bass choir, and we sang "You're Coming Out to That Land."
Yeah.
And I just want to say it was the highlight of the whole concert, and it was like the best part. And it made me really proud to be a part of it and to sing that song. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. I've heard that recording. I listened to it over and over again. You all sounded amazing. It was, and I've conducted the piece, and I can say without a doubt that was the finest interpretation that I've heard yet of that piece. I'm telling you right now. And I've conducted, and I've heard collegiate ensembles do it. It was amazing. It was great to hear, and I love the way that you all infused that with the African piece. Yeah. Oh my God. Awesome. Y'all rocked the house. It was great.
I'll tell Dr. Labar you said that too.
I'm sure I've told Cameron several times, but you tell him again that I said it. Yeah.
I will. Awesome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Jason. You want to field some of your questions that you have on your side, Dr. Waddles?
Yeah, let's do this.
If you have time.
Yeah, no, let's do it. I've got time. Because I was going to write back to all of them, but let's do this. So Jackson R, B2, will you direct this at State? No. Dr. Amanda Quist, who was my oh my gosh, she was my teacher and mentor, and then she became my colleague when I started conducting at Westminster. She will be conducting this. She's the one that picked the piece, and you all are going to love her. She is now director of choral activities at University of Miami at the Frost School of Music and doing amazing things. Lydia says, thank you so much for being here. I love how you included so many different parts of you into the song. Oh my gosh, thank you. Absolutely love the song, and the way that you explained it only made it better. Thank you. Camille, was it hard growing up as a Black composer? That's a very great question. I grew up in Detroit, and I grew up in Detroit around a time where it was very, very heavily inundated by Black culture. And so that was a very opening experience for me. I went to Morehouse, and so I was at a historically Black college, and they were the first ones that allowed me to write, that encouraged me to write. When I was at Westminster, they encouraged me too. And I won't say that every experience was the best, but it was necessary. I will say that my experience has not been as difficult as others. And I specifically state that as for colleagues of mine who were African American women composers, who even received less exposure. And so I take this time here to make sure that we support them. And I work to give up my space for them. So that's a very great question. Thank you. I'm blessed to have had less of a difficult experience, but speaking for the whole, I know that wasn't necessarily the case for everybody. Let's see, Caleb. Dr. Waddles, I'm a huge fan of yours. I was wondering what kind of tone you were envisioning for the tenor group. Okay. Da 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 da. So you need to be like a pastor. You need to be like a very exuberant preacher. And let's see, who could I tell you to go to? I want you to look up Reverend C.L. Franklin on YouTube. Reverend C.L. Franklin. Reverend C.L. Franklin was the father of Aretha Franklin. And Aretha Franklin's singing, she would tell you often, was heavily influenced by C.L. Franklin's preaching. So I want you to go look that up, and that's the tone. Very good question. As a fellow Black composer, oh my gosh. Anybody who's here that's composing, I don't know, whatever color you are, send stuff to me. I want to see it. I'm very serious. Okay, what inspired you to write this specific piece, and has it helped you with composing other pieces? Yeah, so I kind of gave you all of my inspiration story, but in terms of composing other pieces, it was huge, because generally the format that Dr. Thomas gave me is the format that I've used for so many others. I try to make sure that it doesn't become too mundane. And I hope that, as you all experience other pieces of mine, that you'll recognize that there are differences. But even for my friend, Jason, forgive me if I got that wrong. Jason, when you were doing the Come and Go to That Land, there are definitely very specific points that kind of mirror what I did with Riding the Chariot and other pieces like that, even some of the slower tempo ones. That's a great question. Okay, I answered the inspiration piece. Message behind this piece. What is the message behind this piece? Do you? Yeah, I don't know if you all were expecting that one, but please do you? Because at that moment in time when I was writing this, I had been wow. Yeah, maybe I can go answer the other question. The other has it been hard as a Black composer? I'll tell you this. Oftentimes we are looked at as the concert enders and the spiritual arrangers. And there was a time where pieces of mine that were not spirituals were not being looked at as seriously. What is the message behind this piece? Do you? And I cast no aspersion against Black sacred music and writing in spiritual form and writing in terms of jazz or the blues or gospel music. I do all of that. I do it all well. And I also work in non-idiomatic spaces as well. Non-idiomatic meaning not referring specifically to pieces that genres that are specifically to the culture. I work well in it all. Do you? That's the message. What did you think when creating the soprano descant? I grew up in Black church, and I grew up around a lot of um, some of my mothers, as we might call them, and they were heavy, and they could sit back in this chair just like this, and they would sing to you as fully as if they were standing up, and as if there were 20 of them, but there'd only be two. So that is that. We always look at the Sopranos as the big mouths. I'm sorry, I love y'all though. But they come in and everybody's done their little part, and they were like, include me too. It's time, period.
Yeah.
And they will go and they will soar over everybody. So I want you to do that. Please soar. Yes. The soprano descant and the soprano line. Let's see. When you were choosing colleges, what drew your attention towards a school? I will say, in college, grad school, wherever, make sure that it is a program that allows you to do everything that you want to do because you're paying for it. And I don't even care if it's scholarship. You're there, and allow them to do what you want to do and make your own path. Please. I've been all over the place, and people used to tell me that's not a good thing and you need to specify on one particular thing. No, 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 no. You will realize that in this current climate, you are going to have to do a little bit of everything. And don't be discouraged by that. Don't be discouraged by that. Just do it. So with that said, that first is making sure that the the university is the program in itself is for you. Also the teacher. It's very important, especially for those of you that are going into vocal performance or things of that nature. The teacher, the teacher, the teacher. Look at the teacher. Look at they've been performing. Look who they've been teaching. Listen to the people that they've been teaching. And I say that even for music ed. Look at the people that are going out and teaching and doing wonderful things. Look at those Grammy Music Educator Award nominees and winners. Oh my God, look at them. Who taught them? Yep, that's a really great question. These are all great questions. 50 points to all squads for your insightful question. Yes, you all have been great. A question I have is if you have a part of the song that resonates with you or a certain voice part that specifically resonates with you. Well, I would assume that you all know what my voice part is just by hearing me speak. And yes, the answer is first soprano. Thank you. Let's see. A question I have is if there's a part of the song that resonates with you. Yeah, that ostinato section at the end, which is so interesting because I didn't originally, that wasn't my initial expectation for the piece, but it's so representative of everything of what I grew up with in Black Baptist church specifically, that the way that oh my gosh, it's like, and this is not touting myself. This is actually a representation of how great the gospel vamp is. It sings itself. It's like Brahms. You sing any Brahms. Just sing through the Requiem. It sings itself. Yeah. Who is not familiar with Ein Deutsches Requiem, please go listen to it immediately.
They're singing movement 4 for all state.
That's familiar. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
See how I connected that without even knowing? Oh my God. How do you want the word mercy to be pronounced? Oh Lord, have mercy on me. Leave the R out. Have mercy on me. Okay. Yeah. Not mercy, mercy. Yeah.
And the other question has to do with Lord, and I think you answered that as well. It's more of an open awe instead of closed O.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're good. Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to become a composer in the future? Try not to limit yourself to one particular thing, and listen to as many things as you can. Always. I made Andrew Sisters references today. I made Broadway references. I'm a huge Sondheim fan. I'm a huge fan of, legit Oscars and Hammerstein. Carousel is top. I'm 32, and most people would be like, "What are you doing knowing all that stuff?" I listen to it all. I listen to Judy Garland. Babs is my girl. All of it. Shoot, go watch Pose and watch Gay Ball Culture. Just experience because all of that really creates it makes you a very diverse person in terms of the music that you present. And there's nothing worse than a composer who hasn't listened to anything but their own stuff. Yeah, listen to everything, experience everything. Go to art museums. Go read books. And it's not just all the music. There's music in the books and there's music in the art too. Yeah. How long have you been making your, how long have I been arranging? Since I got to Westminster. So I got to Westminster in 2011. It's been about 9 years. Really longer than that. I did like arranging in high school. It wasn't, I mean, nothing published, nothing that I'd want you all to hear. But you know, you got to start somewhere. Yeah. How do you reharmonize your arrangements? I'm an aspiring music theorist, and Come and Go to That Land has intrigued me. Yeah, jazz. Um, and let me tell you my favorite jazz artist, and he he would not have liked to have just been referred to as a jazz artist. He's just an American musician. Is Miles Davis. I played in a jazz band. First of all, I'm a pianist. All of my degrees are in voice, but I started in piano. And when I was in high school, I played in a jazz band. And I had no idea about comping. Comping is basically the pianist is chording along, but he's not doing a whole lot of rollicking in the bass. And so I had to learn about that. But what I did is every weekend, my grandfather would take me to either Borders or Barnes and Noble. Oh my gosh. Well, so that tells you how long ago this has been. And I would pick up just about every Miles Davis album that I could. Of course, everybody knows about Kind of Blue. Bill Evans, I'm giving you all these names. Please make sure that you will write down and look these people up. Is hugely important because of his use of modal harmonies and introducing modal harmonies to jazz in terms of what we call cool jazz. For those of you all who don't know Kind of Blue, it is still the best-selling jazz album in history. But I'm a huge jazz aficionado. I definitely use a lot of gospel. How do you reharmonize your arrangements? I stay integral to the melody. Don't get in the way of the melody. Yeah, I didn't mean to be so harsh. Look at that. Ugh. But yeah, listen, just go listen to stuff. And if you have any further questions, you all can get my email. Just hit me up. Did you know how to compose before college? That's a good question. I'm gonna answer that funnily. When did you discover that's what you wanted to do with your life? When I was in high school, one of my main mentors and one of the composer arrangers whose music I helped premiere was Stacy Gibbs. And I'm almost certain that anybody who's been singing choral music for the past 10 years knows exactly who Stacy Gibbs is. He is one of our foremost arrangers of the spiritual. He is my big brother, and he is one of the reasons that I write today. Did I know how to compose before college? I sure tried. Once again, it's nothing that I'd ever let any of you all listen to. But I'm so grateful for my high school teacher who was like, just keep at it, baby. Keep at it. Keep at it. College, because of more direct work in theory, is where I started to learn a little bit about voice parts and voice part writing and all of that. So get all the basics and then throw it out. Yep, great. What is your favorite Broadway musical? My favorite legit is Carousel. Carousel. I believe that now my favorite, it's still kind of like in between legit and contemporary, but Stephen Sondheim's Company. Beautiful stuff. Being Alive. Go listen to it like now. Yeah. Just leave this call and go listen to it. Come and Go is still the best. Thank you. This is probably my favorite. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful piece. Thank you. I truly adore the Andrew. Somebody knows. Do you envision the CH and chatter being dental, and what is going to be emphasized in the shape of that? Oh my gosh, I've got like a vocal pedagogue in here. Yes, it needs to be more dental, so implosive instead of explosive. Chatter, 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 Lord. What's going to be emphasized in the shape of that? So chatter, 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 Lord. Okay, yeah, and probably more dental because you want to get out of the way of the melody. Remember, the tenors and basses have the melody in that, but keep that harmony full. I'm an alto, and although I never got to sing "Come and Go to the Land," no. Oh my gosh, these are my favorites. Winter, I Love Your Name, because I get to dress like I want to. At what age did you start writing your first song? And do you have to be a good writer to write a song? When did I first start writing my first song? Very young, very young. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I know I was very young when I started writing. I just used to come up with ideas all the time. Do you have to be a good writer to write a song? No, you don't have to be a good writer, but you do have to have heart and intent. And I guess in a sense that does make you a good writer. Yeah, change that around. Are there any ways we can follow your work? Yes, I just I have a new website now. It's brandonwaddles.com. Very easy. Yeah. So I have all my stuff on there. Any of my pieces, they're all there. Shortly, I'll have in my upcoming events. So when we're actually allowed to go out and do things, I'll I'll have some events down there as it pertains to my schedule. Yep, absolutely. BrandonWaddles.com. Advice for a
Awesome.
younger ranger. Samuel Smith. Do you? Be you. Be you. Be you.
Dr.
Yep.
Waddles, Dr. Cruz is
Yeah.
on here right now, and she has a question that she'd like to ask.
Great. Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, so great to meet you and be with you.
Great.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
My
having me.
question is just on behalf of all of these young singer musicians that we have here, if you have any suggestions, how can this piece or any of our spirituals that we sing in choir, how can they help us with this current social revolution that's so important in our country right now?
Oh, it's so crucial. And let me tell you, and thank you so much for this question. I have been fighting for the spiritual since I first heard it. And I was a young kid in church growing up, and I didn't know what I was listening to, but I know that it really touched me. So it's interesting because I didn't know that it had to be a spirit, that it was a spirit. I didn't have to know that it was a spiritual for it to touch me. I've done enough research now on to know, and I will state emphatically for the rest of my days that the American Negro spiritual is the definitive American music, and from it flows everything that we have, and that includes jazz, blues, gospel, rock and roll, rap, hip hop, country music. And so, if we're aware of that, and aware that this beautiful music is the foundation of all American music, then I think that should create a sense of empathy and a sense of devotedness, a sense of diligence, and a necessity to keep this music alive and to sing it like it means something. I didn't grow up on anybody's field. I did not plow cotton. I was not beaten. I was not lynched. So I don't have the experience of the slave, so to speak. And I just have to be as direct as I can about this. So if I'm able to find my own message in it, then we all can. That's the message. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Dr. Waddles.
Good. Yeah.
Awesome.
These are great. What time? I don't want to be getting you all's time.
Oh, we're fine. If you've got more time, we've got more time. I do want to say that I have several people that say that they like your glasses. I wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Okay, let's do this. Zlul. Hold on, I'm writing it in a message to everyone. Zlul.com. They're very inexpensive. Hold on, let me put it here so you all know. Yeah, they're really good. Somebody just said Stacy Gibbs. I know, right? So I'm gonna. Yeah.
Oh, you go.
No, you go.
I was gonna say I like your haircut.
Look at this.
Yeah.
If you all can, if you all could like go back when I was in my master's, I had hair. Got to my PhD and just lost it. Look at Dr. Zabriskie. We're here together. Yeah. here's a waste of time in doctoral school. Oh my gosh. Good. Oh wow, there's some I had to go all the way down. I'm trying to make sure that I got through this. Yeah. This is great. Oh wow. Caleb, thank you so much. I got your message about Rex, man. Thank you. And I'm still thinking of you, man. Okay, good. I made it. Okay.
Awesome.
So some of these questions are repeated. So I'm just gonna go through to ones that I know are a little bit different. I know I can answer distinctly. How many songs have you written and which one do you believe expresses the most emotion? I've written a lot well, not a lot. I mean, we talk about like Mozart and all those, and they wrote hundreds and hundreds. I've wrote a generally good portion. I would say that at least about 25 to 30 are published right now. Which one do you believe expresses the most emotion? It's either Fix Me, Jesus, or or Balm in Gilead. And to be honest with you all, I was going through a bit of a depressive state during that time. And one of the most calming moments for me is just to sit at a piano and play by myself. And that's how both of those songs came. Okay. And they were published immediately. What kind of message do you, free yourself. Do you inspire me. Thank you, Kinsey. How does it feel to hear people sing your piece? Wow. Yeah, it's an out of body experience every time, and remain grateful because people are doing you a favor. You'll learn in this life, nobody has to do a thing for you. So when people take the time to support you, be grateful. Thank you. Was composing what you want to do from the beginning, or did you have other plans? Yeah, I've had plenty of other plans. Most of them have not come to fruition. Most of them. And because of that, I'm so grateful because they've led to so many other things. When I graduated from Florida State, I had no university job that had called me back. I maybe had, none of them went through. And then I started touring with a R&B artist named Lettucey, who is a 10 to 12 time Grammy nominated artist. And I was in LA for several months doing things that I love. Just continue to do you. And I'm a day-to-day guy. I take it as it comes. I really am. A lot of people don't like that, but because of what I've done, I'm so grateful to be able to speak to people from a variety of experiences, and that helps them. Because it is never one size fits all in music. Never that. Yeah. Tone for the altos, warm. What does the band signify? Or is it just a little? No, it is not a little. Band, that we talk about like angel bands. We talk about it could be sort of militant in a way. We talk about like army bands that traveled with. They have a sense of militancy to them, but they're also encouraging and congratulatory. I hope I join the band. I just hope I join. I hope I get to heaven. The band very, very well may be heaven, or it may be my people that are waiting for me on freedom side. Yeah, it's a good question. Tones for the other voice parts. Warm with ebullience. Chiaro scuro, light and dark. Have you ever accompanied this piece before? Used to do it all the time. In fact, I might do it at Allstate, but we'll see. Yes. Let's see. I'm gonna put my email address on this shortly. I love to read through piano pieces. Oh my gosh, almost cried. Cut it out, Brianna. Do you have a process to finding spirituals that stand out for you? Yes, I have a book that I usually go through. I love haunting melodic tunes. Haunting, almost dark, which is why I'm a Sondheim fan. Anybody else Sondheim fans? Yeah, that's me. Do you ever get recognized by people on the street? No, I am not famous. Are you working on any new pieces right now? Yes. I'm so grateful. ACDA, the Diverse Voices Grant or Coalition, chose me as one of their inaugural recipients. And so I'm working on a double choir piece that will feature not only the text of James Baldwin, an author everyone should know, but also the text of the Negro Spiritual, the melodies of the Negro Spiritual. And they will be accompanied by a jazz trio. That's the next big thing. Yep. Come on, Reverend C.L. Franklin.
Cool. So
yeah,
Dr. Waddles,
yeah,
I think we're reaching the end of our time. Before
yeah.
we do, Camille B wants to say something. So you have permission to unmute Camille and
Please.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. I
Camille.
just wanted to say thank you for doing what you do, because as a fellow Black composer and as a Black person in general, it's really inspiring to see someone like me succeed for once and not have the odds stacked against us. So genuinely, thank you so much.
Camille, thank you. There's somebody that I want you to look up. Her name is Brittany Boykin. She was my colleague at Westminster. She is now at 3 different institutions in Atlanta. She is co-director of the Glee Club at Spelman. She's also at Georgia Tech, and she's also at Agnes Scott. And she is an amazing, amazing Black woman composer, Brittany Boykin. I'm going to put that name down, and she has a website. Please go look her up. Please reach out to her and tell her that I sent you. Here is my email address for anybody whose questions that I did not answer. Send them to me. I will respond to everyone. And
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waddles. Everybody give him a snaps or some claps or some cheering. Take yourself on mute and say thanks. And then we have some announcement before we go. So
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
so much.
Thank
you so much, Dr. Waddles.
thank you.
You're the best.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Love your last name.
Well, my last name. Thank you.
Love you, fam.
Waddles.
It is pretty cool.
This is my favorite.
Back up.
Reminds me of a character from Gravity Falls.